Let's get started. Don, I know you got a lot to talk about, and we've got an hour to do so. So, for those that don't know, Don Costa is our guest today. Don and I met 2017. Don's been my mentor since 2017. When I started out, many of you know I was a house painter, and I always say this: if I'm a house painter, I can figure it out with help from guys like Don. Anybody can do it. I mean, real estate's a fun, interesting, sometimes volatile, pull your hair out type of business, and it can be, full of pitfalls. But with good instruction, I mean, good, solid plans, and good mentorship, it does not have to be. So I met Don in 2017, and we just stay connected. I'm a part of Don's ICE community, which is a group of very high level, achieving, amazing, go giving group of investors that Don's assembled. Um, and it's been a privilege to be a part of it. Don's going to go over lessons learned, investors, things that he saw investors making mistakes in 2024. So, without further ado, Don, go ahead and take it away, man. You got the stage, and run with it. Pause, ask questions. I guess type them in the chat. Want to keep a good flow here, so if you do have questions, just type them in.
Yeah, I'm going to share my screen, make sure everybody can see that. All right. So for those of you who don't know, a lot about me, I've been doing this investing thing since 2003. I've been rehabbing properties for about 22 years. Been wholesaling really intensely since about 2018. And I've done everything from subject to for the first 5 years of my business. I bought everything subject to. And doing a lot of high level rehabbing, high level wholesaling, and that kind of thing. So I've done over $1 million in assignment fees in 1 year. That was about 60 deals, and for wholesales. And at my peak, I was doing about 200 deals a year between rehabs and wholesales combined. So one of the really cool things that I've had the advantage of being able to do is being able to coach and mentor and help investors around the country since about 2017. And I get to look inside people's businesses, and that's really, really, I think, a neat thing for me. I get to help and guide people, and one of the things I get to do is I get to see what's working and what's not working across the country. And one of the things I want to share today is what I have learned, or I should say, has gotten reinforced in the last 12 months of working with businesses that have struggled in the last 12 months. So, and let's just face it, 2024 was not an epic year for most people. 2024 was a challenge. We had an election. Elections really do affect marketing in a big way. They affect seller confidence and buyer confidence. And so a lot of people saw challenges in their business in 2024. But one of the things that came up when we met a couple of weeks ago in Orlando with our ICE community was the reality, I think, is people really their businesses started to struggle in 2023, but they didn't really feel the effects till 2024. And part of that was, 2021 and 2022, the market was on fire. And I always say a good market hides a bad business.
Mm-hmm.
And that's true. People get lazy, people get inefficient, they get arrogant, and that really affects their ability to operate when the market changes, and it gets more normalized or challenging. And so these are some of the things, if everybody can see my screen, these are some of the biggest issues that I saw in businesses in 2024. So one of the things I do want to say here real quick is I do actually have a cold. I'm medicated to the hilt, but if for some reason I'm in the middle of talking and I suddenly go silent, it's because I've muted myself and I have to cough because your sound is bad. So I'll give you a warning there. But so far, so good. So this was actually a almost 3 or 4 hour conversation on when we were in Orlando in person. So this conversation could go really, really, really deep. I'm going to try to keep it at a high level today. But every one of these issues warrants a deeper conversation and a deeper look in your business. So I just want to encourage people that when take notes, talk amongst your team, talk amongst the people that you reach out to for advice and information. You can always, reach out to Jason or even myself if you want, to get a deeper dive into something specific. All right. So the first one seems obvious, but running a bad business, again, a good market hides a bad business. And in 2023, 2024, I think that started to get some light shined on it. So most of what I'm going to talk about here today as we go through these issues is a culmination of different things combined, making what I would call a bad business. But at the end of the day, it's important that we're looking at our businesses and we're making sure that it can withstand changes in the market, that you have systems and processes in place, that you have roadblocks in place to make sure that your business is effective regardless of what the market's doing. And one of those things I'll just say, it's not I don't have another slide on it, but I want to add here, one of the traps we get in when the market's on fire, we start betting the market. We start speculating. And so when we're buying rehabs, we'll say, well, if we keep it for 3 months or 4 months or 6 months, we'll be able to sell it for more. And that works great until it doesn't. And then all of a sudden the market shifts and you can't get that number. And that's a huge thing that I saw looking at a few businesses where people got caught with multiple rehabs they couldn't sell, was they were betting the upside on the ARV. And then when the market shifted, there was just no justification for that number at that point in time because the market wasn't going to give them that, and they had bought completely wrong. So, blocking and tackling the fundamentals are extremely important in your business, and one of those fundamentals is just making sure that you're making decisions from reality and not speculating or pushing things forward. Mm-hmm. All right, so no defined business strategy is a huge issue that I saw. And as investors, we have this optimistic naivety when we start. In any business, I think, as entrepreneurs, we have this optimistic naivety that we can conquer the world, that nothing's going to stop us, and every deal is a good deal. And I was the same way when I first got started. I tried to make everything work. I would square peg around whole things, and I would pull it off, and I would make money, and it was crazy. And those things, for the most part, it's like going to Vegas and putting it all in black. You may win 9 times out of 10, but the 10th time, you hit, you lose probably the majority of what you made on every other bet. And this is very much the same way. And so it's important to have a defined business strategy. So, and what do I mean by that? So first thing I would say is you want to ask yourself, what business are you in? Are you a wholesaler? Are you a rehabber? What is your core business? Are you buy and hold? Are you doing storage units or subdivisions, or like, are you flipping land? Are you one of those guys that go in there and lock up land and take it to tenant track and then flip it? That's a great business to be in. But ultimately you got to define what that is. I am a rehabber first. That is my core business when it comes to real estate investing. And so everything you do needs to feed that. So in other words, when I took on wholesaling as an operation, wholesaling simply was a necessity because I had a buy box. And nothing and everything that was outside my buy box got wholesaled. So it added to my business. And that's, I think, a huge thing we need to think about when we're doing these things is, are these things adding to or taking away from our business? I talk about systems and processes as a line in the sand, and I'll mention this again. I talk about systems and processes as a line in the sand. Defining your business strategy as a line in the sand. Okay, and so that doesn't mean that I can't do something that's outside of that line. It just means that line is a trigger for me to go to somebody that I respect, whether it's my team or a mentor, and have a conversation about, will this or won't this take away from my business, if that makes sense. So if I'm doing, single family homes and I'm flipping single family homes and I decide that I want to flip, I don't know, a storage facility, right? Does that or does not not fit my defined business strategy? It doesn't fit my defined business strategy. So that means that triggers a conversation with the people that I trust as to how does it or doesn't it take away from my core business, if that makes sense. And so really, as we go through these and I start talking about systems and processes and these lines in the sand, these things really are designed for us to, this is our core, this is what I'm really good at, and everything else I either completely say no to, or I go to somebody that I trust and I look for my blind spots, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. If I could interject one thing, Don, just conversation you and I've had, not every opportunity is a good opportunity.
No.
As a new investor, we've got a lot of seasoned investors and newer investors alike on this call. You can be so inundated with opportunity and you think that every opportunity is a good opportunity, and they're not. I mean, a more direct way to say that is stop chasing squirrels. Like, get really good and honed in on one thing, like Don's talking about. Like, what business are you in? Get really good at that, and then as you grow, you can look at other opportunities, or Don's talking about, like, even when those opportunities come, like, take them to somebody else that's their core business. Like, what does this look like? I've seen it too many times, and I know, Don, you have too. Like, you just think, every opportunity is a good opportunity. And I tell you what, you make more money on the things you say no to than things you say yes to. We all know that person that's, so wildly optimistic about everything that they're killing their business. And Don, you're going to elaborate on that, I know, but just wanted to interject that.
Absolutely. No, that's 100% true. If I was brought an opportunity to, I don't know, start some kind of underwater tour thing, like, and it was a cash cow, it's not something that I understand. It's not my wheelhouse. I don't have the resources for it. It's something, I mean, that seems a little bit extreme, but the point is that, not every opportunity to make money, like Jason's saying, is an opportunity that we should be saying yes to. Not sticking to the strategy. I mean, that's a huge one. You defined your strategy, you define what business you're in, and then you're still all over the place. You're not sticking to it. You're not adhering to it. And entrepreneurs, again, we want to chase every single deal. So sometimes we lack discipline. And I think having discipline is extremely important, in how we do things. Not having a defined buy box. This is huge. And I kind of alluded to this before. Once we have a defined business strategy, what's your buy box? Okay. I rehabbed 130 homes in a year. And the reason I was able to do that is because I knew what I was good at. I'm good at first time buyer, second time buyer price points. So essentially, everything I take on as a rehab is going to sit in that. I don't want houses older than 1950 in my particular market. I don't want houses that are going to take, like, I won't do fire damage. I won't touch fire damage because I'm not good at it. I don't have the resources to be good at it. I stay away from high end homes because high end homes take too many resources and too much energy. I know people who specialize in fire damage and make a killing. And I know people who specialize in high-end homes make a killing. I'm not saying those are not things that people shouldn't do. I don't specialize in those. My team is efficient at first-time buyer, second-time buyer. We can kick them out all day long. A typical full cosmetic rehab is going to take me about 3 weeks. The worst case scenario, we can do almost $100,000 rehab on a property in about 7 or 8 weeks. We're very, very efficient. So we stay away from stuff that takes, where we're going to be moving walls. We take away from stuff that takes, like, hyper crazy, long, exaggerated rehabs and so on and so forth. We know our buy box, and everything that doesn't fit in our buy box, everything that sits outside our buy box, we're going to wholesale. And so we're going to monetize it. We're just going to wholesale it. It's not part of our efficiency. And that's, I think, a huge issue. Again, is we want to try to rehab everything. And I remember back in the day when I first started, I wanted to rehab everything. And you start to realize, for instance, if you do a high-end home, it takes you longer to rehab specific materials. Your contractor's got to be more effective. You got to pick your buyer pool. It takes longer to sell. So even though you make a higher profit off of that particular property, the time and effort in the project, actually your cash on cash return or your time in return, isn't as good as doing multiple first time buyer, second time buyer price points in that same time period. And to me, that's more efficient for me. So defining your buy box is huge. I don't know, Jason, if you want to say anything about that.
Yeah, I mean, you've got it dialed into, you've got a cash on cash return that you're looking for. This is something I teach all the time, and you're going to get to this, but your KPIs are going to help you identify your buy box. I know after averaging all my projects, the ones that are the most profitable. I mean, I've done it all. I've done the huge rehabs, the high-end rehabs. I've done the turnkey. I mean, all of it, and my numbers don't lie. I mean, they've told me where I needed to find my buy box, because out of all these crazy things that I've done, there's a consistent sweet spot where I make the most money in the least amount of time with the least amount of headaches. That's your buy box.
That's your buy box.
Don said, you may be the preeminent high-end house flipper, and you may only do 2 a year, And that could be your buy box. I mean, that's great. You may, you know, focus on turnkey and selling to investors, whatever it is. I mean, just defining your buy box. And Don, I know you're going to talk about KPIs, but this is critical because again, we can just chase every deal, and we think that we're going to turn it in and we're going to be the exception to the rule. Forget it. I mean, there's a reason that the saying is there's no exceptions to the rule. Like, you're not going to be the exception to the rule. Just stick with the game plan and define your buy box.
The reason why we were able to do 130 rehabs in a year, it seems crazy, when you think about it. When I first started out, I told people I was going to do 10 a month, and I thought I was nuts. But the reason why I was able to do 130 rehabs in a year was because, we had two pallets, basically two different color codes, and we had the exact materials that we needed in a first-time buyer, second-time buyer price point lined out, and we had contractors in place that were efficient at that quality of work, right? A high-end home is a different quality of work. And so we had contractors efficient in that quality of work, and we were able to kick them out. Just bam, 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 bam. We knew exactly what we're doing every time.
Mhm.
I have some buddies that are in Pennsylvania. No, they're in, I forget exactly where they're at, but anyway, Pittsburgh. They're in Pittsburgh. So they specialize in farm ranch style houses, basically in Pittsburgh. And Arch literally said, I can pull up to the outside of the house and know exactly what the inside floor plan looks like and what I need. And they specialize in that, and they kick them out, and they built an amazing rental portfolio by doing that, because they know exactly what they need to buy it for, what their rehab's going to be, what their timeline's going to be, and all that kind of stuff. And they don't deviate. And I found through the years that some of the best, most efficient house flippers, buy and hold guys, the same way. They know their product, and they do their product well, and they stick to their product. And that's a huge thing to share here. All right. Next is improper funding and capital strategies. We're all taught to have skin in the game in projects. And I am a huge advocate of having none of your money in projects. I want 100%, private money financing for my deals. I don't put any money into my projects. Cash flow is the lifeblood of a business. Having capital is the lifeblood of a business. So cash flow and capital resources are really what makes your business work. And when you're putting your money into projects, I think that is a huge step to putting yourself into a bind and getting yourself into trouble. And I advocate no money in projects. But regardless, the point is that you really need to sit back and look at your business and your capital and cash flow and start to look for outside the box ways of how do I make this the most efficient without causing the least amount of pain for myself. And that's something that I don't think people do. They're constantly chasing deals. They're willing to overextend themselves for deals. They're willing to tie themselves into knot for deals. And it's just the wrong thing. It's the wrong thing to be. If there's a deal and I can't get the funding necessary to do the deal the way I prefer to be funded, then again, I will wholesale that deal. I'll find another way to monetize that deal. I will not take it on as a rehab. And again, I know we have wholesalers on here, and rehabbers, probably most of this group is rehabbers, but if you're marketing, if you're spending money on marketing and you're building a team, you still got to look at your capital and cash flow strategies in the way to be most efficient in your business, so that you're not constantly borrowing from Peter to pay Paul. Being indecisive or not taking action on what you need to do. This is a huge issue in 2024, when I've been mentoring and working with individuals. Having a good mentor or a good community is huge in the sense that usually, like, I can come in and help you see a blind spot. I can give you permission to take action on something that you need to do, but you just want that second opinion. Or maybe I just need to turn your head a little bit to help you see something you aren't seeing. And so having the right person in your corner is important. I know Jason has done that, for this community, and I would continue to reach out to him for that. But I also would encourage you to have the gonads to take action on what you need to do regardless. And we all usually know we got to fire that person, or we got to cut that expense, or we gotta make that investment into the marketing channel, or there's things we need to do. And that indecision is something that it can be crippling. And I don't know how to I don't know how to hammer that in, but indecision is a decision. Not taking action is a decision. And you can't sit there and allow yourself to bleed out or to not move forward because you're not making decisions. So, the best way I can say this is even if you make the wrong decision, make a decision.
Mhm.
And it's okay to make the wrong decision and make a mistake and learn from it and learn that was not the direction you're supposed to go, and then turn and make the right decision, if that makes sense. But if you have access to somebody to help mentor you or guide you, then that's huge.
I say this all the time, Don. You can't steer a parked car. Like indecision is a decision. Like you got to be moving. I mean, you have to be moving. And to Don's point, finding a community and people that you can ask and see your blind spots. I mean, I do that all the time, and I turn and I'm asking people for blind spots and seeking counsel and stuff that I'm doing, and then we offer it, to people that I know, and yeah, I mean, it's crazy. Like you'll think like, hey, given this scenario, is this a deal or should I move forward with this? And I'm like, that's a home run. How are you even thinking about it? Like, yes,
Right.
move forward. Or is this a deal? I'm like, no, that's terrible. Like you're accounting for all the stars to align and hoping and praying that it's going to work. And so having people around you that can see your blind spots, can give advice and really help you. I mean, I say real estate's a team sport, and this is very true. But yeah, Don, you're right. Indecision is in fact a decision, and it can be a crippling one.
Huge, huge crippling one. Next, making decisions from fear and desperation. And this is, a lot of us will isolate, stick our hand in the sand. And while I'm saying, it's important to make a decision, even making the bad decision is at least moving yourself forward. It's also important to understand where your mindset's at when you're in these situations. A lot of us, let me tell a story. Like, so 2018, I got crazy. I sent out 1.2 million postcards that year. I ended up hiring like 5 lead managers. I had 2 acquisitions reps, and we were absolutely crushing it. We were killing it. And for the first half of the year. And then I decided that I wanted to expand and go bigger because, I mean, that's what we're supposed to do, right? We're supposed to scale. So I ended up going up to 8 acquisitions reps. All my acquisition reps were on a true draw. In other words, I would pay them a certain amount of money a month, and then I would take that out of their commissions, out of their earnings. So if I paid them 3,000 that month and they made 10,000, they would actually walk with 7 additional. So they still got their 10. And that was how I was paying them. So I was advancing a lot of money is the point I want to make. And the new acquisitions reps, looking back on it now, okay, this is admitting failure and fault and everything else. Looking back on it now, the new acquisitions reps, they weren't, a couple of them were not getting traction. We're not getting deals. So I was spending all this extra money on marketing, and I wasn't converting. I wasn't seeing the results, in the same measure that I was seeing beforehand. Okay. And so what's the first thing we all do when that happens? We start bleeding money, right? We turn off marketing. That's the first thing we all do. Well, the marketing is not working. Well, the marketing was working, but the acquisitions reps were not working. And I wasn't being real about that, number one. Number two, you turn off marketing and suddenly that starts to be a catalyst in you not getting the results. And you start doing this, you start closing off, and everything becomes fear-based. And so I think the point is that I want to make here is when you realize that you're starting to cut your nose off to spite your face, you're starting to consider those types of decisions in your business, that you really need to get outside counsel to help guide you through whatever that path is. I think that's important. And I watched a lot of businesses do this in 2024 where they've just made very fear-based decisions and they cut things off that were not the problem because that was the easiest thing to turn off quickly to stop the bleeding. And so if you recognize you're starting to make decisions out of fear, or you're starting to feel a little desperate, that is going to cloud your judgment, and getting outside advice is a huge, huge, thing for you to do, because we'll be able to see, those that are on the outside of it looking in will be able to see the obvious that you're not seeing. Not taking the time factor seriously. This goes for flipping, wholesaling, anything else. If you buy a cash flow property and you're not getting in there and getting it repositioned. You're not getting the empty units renovated and re-rented. You're bleeding. You should have some kind of process or system or guideline that you're following that says that this is our timeline from acquisitions to basically reposition and cash flowing. And you should have the mechanisms in your business to push that thing forward. The same thing with rehabbing. When I started back in 2012, I started in 2002. I lost everything around 2008, 9, and 10. Got back into it in 2012. Our motto was get in, get out, get paid. That was our motto. And so, I was mentoring somebody this last year that literally bought a property that had well over $100,000 in it. And he bought so damn deep, it was crazy. He's buying like 50% cash on cash. And the property sat for almost a year before they even started rehabbing it. And so that just boggles my mind, because that's profit, that's revenue just sitting. And so, number one, when it comes to time, you got to have mechanisms in your business. Like I said, we get in from the time we close, we hit the ground running, and we average about 100-day turn time from check to check. Okay. And that is very important to us. That time is very important to us. We don't let anything sit. In wholesaling, as a wholesaler, we put mechanisms in our business. If we don't have an offer within 3 days to, that we're willing to accept and assign it, then our project manager has to see the property, see if it's something we're willing to close on, if the budget works for us. And if it doesn't, he needs to put his number on it. And then we need to go back to the seller by day 7 and ask for a reduction. And if the seller says no, that they're not going to give us a reduction to make it a deal for us or make it a deal that we can assign, then we have to cancel that contract. So having mechanisms in your business to make sure that time is adhered to is extremely important. And that was probably one of the biggest issues that I've seen, is we start making money and become very nonchalant and loosey-goosey about our operation. And suddenly money is just sitting on the sidelines, and the worst thing that can happen is you could have a home run deal and then the market completely shift 2 years later to where that deal now is worth nothing.
Yeah,
because you didn't do it in the proper amount of time.
Something I hear you say all the time, and I echo it. Time kills deals. And, for those on this call, listen to the recording, it kills deals for rehabbers, for those doing the BRRRR strategy, for rental turnovers, for wholesalers, for business owners in general. Time kills deals. And, we don't have to look very far. Henry Ford revolutionized this concept of the assembly line at the turn of the last century. And just this idea that Don's talking about, this systems and process in place. No matter what your business is, and go back to Don's first slides, you've identified your buy box in your business. Get systems and processes, i.e. an assembly line in place that's you're just going to follow the script. This is not, real estate is, as much as it breaks people's hearts, it is not like the TV shows make it out to be. It is not about, Don, when's the last time you went and picked out tile at the tile store?
Oh, I don't pick out tile, no.
Never, right? Okay, so that's my point. This is an assembly line. Your business requires this. Time kills deals, and so you want to establish the system and process, aka this assembly line of your business. When this happens, you close on this, or this is your buy box, you're underwriting it, your contract, day 3, you're doing this, day 7, this, you close on the property, automatically the wheels are in motion for your business, for your property, for your rental, for your whatever, part of your real estate business you're implementing. It takes the guesswork out of everything. And that's how ultimately you can be successful. Am I right?
100%. Absolutely. All right. So marketing, not understanding or knowing what is and isn't working in your marketing. I know this. We hear through every Facebook and YouTube and Coach and everything else out there about KPIs, and it's amazing how many businesses out there don't know their KPIs. They don't know what is and what isn't working in their business. And it's extremely important to understand where your deals are coming from. I don't know how many times I've been on a call with somebody saying I'm not performing the way I used to perform, and I'm like, okay, well, basically, what marketing channels are you using? Well, I'm using this one, this one, and this one. Okay, well, which one is bringing in the deals? Well, I don't know. And so you have to know what is and what isn't working in your business. You have to. I know For on the newer side of things, it's a little harder. You're out there, you're just creating chaos and you're trying to make things stick. And I get that. But there's a point in your business where you got to stop and look and say, where's stuff coming from? What's getting me the result? Am I throwing money over here and everything's coming in over here? I mean, you can be doing 3 marketing channels, and everything's coming in off of one, right? And so you got to understand that. When I did the 2 million postcards in 2 years, I could tell you what lists they were coming off of, what if it was not owner occupied, 100%. I could tell you what time of year was, these lists perform the best. I could tell you what postcards perform the best. My best performing postcard ever was one that looked like a 5-year-old wrote it with crayon. That was our top completed converted card from 2018 to 2020. We bought more properties off that card. We have a green card that says we've been trying to reach you that actually got more phone calls than any other card we sent out, but we closed more off the Doodle R card. So, you got to know that. Getting more phone calls makes you feel like you're having more activity. Getting more phone calls makes you feel like it's performing better. But what are you actually closing off of? You got to know that information in order to make a good decision. And so you have to know what is and what is not working in your marketing, because you don't want to cut off a marketing channel that's working for you. And you don't want to be blowing money on a marketing channel that isn't.
One thing I would add to that too is, many people when they're just getting started, there is no marketing. That's the thought. But the truth is you're getting deals from something. So, and it's tracking it. Are you getting deals from your agent? Are you getting pocket listings? Are they on or off market? Are you getting them from wholesalers? How many offers are you making to wholesalers to land a deal? Are you buying REO or bank foreclosed properties or hitting up the tax foreclosures? Are you hitting the online auctions? Are you talk to people? I mean, these friends that you're, getting deals through. No matter where you're getting a deal, that is a marketing channel, whether it's paid marketing or free marketing, whatever source you're landing deals from, dial in, really just dial it in. And if the majority of your deals are coming from, that you're a member of the country club and, you're getting referrals left and right, guess what? Double down on that. You don't have to, start a big TV campaign ad or something. If your network is producing your leads. So anyway, I just wanted to add on to that, because a lot of times people are like, well, I'm not sending anything. I don't have a cold caller working. You're getting deals somehow. So track it.
Well, and then just to add to that, I've seen people that, they have an amazing network and they're getting 90% of their deals from their network. And then they have this marketing channel over here that they're spending this money and time and energy on that they haven't dialed in or isn't producing for them. And they feel like they have to have that marketing channel, but really it's not. The deals are coming from the organic market. So whether it's 2 paid marketing channels or organic versus paid, just knowing where they come from is important, and making decisions based on that is extremely important. And knowing when to turn something off, or when it needs more time is also important. Okay, momentum, not taking the momentum factor seriously. This is, I've been trying to think of the best way to explain this, but when, when we run into a problem in our business, I admitted, I did the same thing. When we run into a concern or problem in our business, usually the first thing we'll turn off is our marketing, whether it is or is not the culprit of our issues. And we forget the time it took to build momentum in that when we first start. When we first start, we have this optimistic naivety. We're going to go all in. We're going to do whatever it takes to make something work. And let's just say we build momentum in a marketing channel, and then we hit a hiccup and we get fearful and we turn that marketing channel off. Well, there's going to be momentum where we're going to feel like, well, I don't have to do any marketing because deals are still coming in. Well, that marketing channel built that wave. And that wave is still going to come in and hit the beach, regardless of if you turn that marketing channel off or not. So then we feel like, well, damn, I'm still getting deals and I'm not doing any marketing. And then all of a sudden that momentum stops and we realize we got to start marketing again. Or maybe we stopped marketing because we just had so many projects on our plate that it didn't make sense for us to continue to market, because, we're a one man or one woman show and we got to focus in on this special project we're doing. When we turn that marketing back on and we don't get the instant results we think we need to get, we start thinking this stuff isn't working. And you got to understand that momentum needs to be built. And that was a huge issue that I saw was, people for various reasons had paused marketing or turned marketing off, or got themselves in a financial bind and had to reposition their company and then turn marketing back on. And then they couldn't figure out why within a week they didn't have another deal. And the reality is that most marketing channels take somewhere between 60 and 180 days to rebuild momentum, to where you start getting deals, consistently. If I send out direct mail today, I could possibly have a deal in the first 10 to 14 days. But the reality is it's probably going to be 30 to 60 days before I actually start to see stuff pop, because I'm restarting all those conversations, if that makes sense. So, understanding the marketing channel, understanding the time it takes to rebuild momentum in that marketing channel is huge, and you got to take it seriously.
Ty asked a question. How long do you let a marketing channel go before you abandon it? So what's a good runway? I mean, I guess it depends on the marketing channel, obviously, but you have a good rule of thumb?
This is, let me do this real quick. I do kind of. Usually you're 60 to 90 days for most marketing channels. You want to give it about a 60 to 90-day runway. You want to look at whether or not you're getting conversations, what the quality of those conversations are, whether or not you're going to be at a point where you're going to be able to close. I'm going to pull something up here from another talk I did and just kind of share this. I think this is important. So it's there's a handful of factors that go into that decision making. The other thing I'll say is most marketing is broken from the point that the phone rings. So you got to also look at if a marketing channel isn't starting to convert, like what's happening when you pick up the phone. What is your team doing? How are those conversations? What's the follow-up process? There's a deeper dive to answer that, but usually 60 to 90 days is a good runway to then reevaluate and say, is this really doing what it's supposed to be doing? Am I doing it the way it's supposed to be done? And that kind of thing. I'm going to stop this share real quick, and then I'm going to share this. I geek out on these things. So understanding lead type and from first contact to close, basically is also important. If you're doing cold calling, if you notice cold calling is way over here. Okay. If you got first contact, cold calling is way over here. Cold calling is probably the one channel that takes the longest to build momentum in. You're looking at 90 to 180 days. And so PPC usually is like a 1 call to 3 call close. PPL, if they're going to convert, if it's a legit lead, is usually maybe a 1 call to 3 call close. Referrals take a few minutes because they are somebody that, has been referred to you as an expert, but you still got to kind of build that rapport. Direct mail is one of those marketing channels. When you have momentum, we've seen that the average from first contact to contract is about 14 days. But if I was to do a direct mail campaign today and start it from scratch, I would not anticipate having a deal for probably the first 30 to 60 days. If something happens, that's great, but I would prepare myself for not having a deal for the first 30 to 60 days. Now I have the mechanisms in place to have the quality conversations, everything else. So when we're looking at marketing, the point here, like you got to stop and think about the lead type in your marketing channel. This is a total deviation from my talk, but paper lead, they have a problem. Pay per click, they have a problem. They're trying to solve a problem. They're a motivated seller. They're going to convert quicker. If you're going to go to pay per click, Google AdWords and stuff like that, you're probably going to have a quicker cycle of runway to success, right? Unless your process is broken. Paper leads kind of the same way. There's a little bit of a drag between the time they submit the lead, you get it, so that allows them to cool off a little bit. But again, they're trying to solve a problem. Referrals, they're looking for somebody to help them. Direct mail or other marketing channels like that, they've gotten your message, they've thought about it, they consumed it, they made a decision, and they decided that they want to reach out and see whether or not you are going to be able to give them the result they need. Something like cold calling, cold texting, you're tapping somebody on the shoulder in the middle of their life when they're not even thinking about you and asking them if they would consider selling. That is a whole different lead type. So I'm going to bounce off of that real quick. I think it's just, you got to stop and think about that marketing channel, and the mechanisms that you should have in place, the systems you should have in place to monetize that marketing channel are different. Pay per click, you want to be able to answer that call right when it comes in. Whereas direct mail, you got to have some follow-up systems and processes in place to really make that thing work properly. And so, having a lead manager in place or somebody to answer the calls and build rapport and set the appointment and do the follow-up. So those things come into consideration in all of that. And that's where I'll leave that is it's a bigger discussion.
Yep. Good stuff.
Yeah. All right. Hopefully I didn't confuse anybody.
No.
All right. This is a huge one. Access to capital. Okay. Access to information and access to capital is what makes you successful in business. It's what drives your speed to success in business. Okay. I should say that. But it's also something that can really hurt you. And I've seen a lot of businesses, especially in the last year, where because they had money in the bank and they had credit cards and they had loans available or lines of credit available, they thought they were successful. They felt good about their business, even though their business was not performing optimally or even at a profit. And so this is a huge thing. You have to measure the success by the results of your business and not by the results of your bank account. And I learned this one the hard way. This is a longer story that I'm going to get into, but I had cell phone stores in Vegas. We were extremely successful, but because of the way we were paid on deals and how we had to basically buy and consume inventory, even though we were highly profitable and highly successful, we had no cash flow, and it put us out of business very, very fast. And I've also been in businesses that were not making money, but because I had access to capital and cash flow, I was able to keep them alive a lot longer than I should have. And so I've seen people feel like they're a king because they have access to capital. They might have borrowed $200,000 and they have $100,000 in the bank and they think they're balling, but really they're $100,000 in the hole. And so you have to measure the success of your business. You have to measure the success of what you're doing based on actual performance and not by your bank account. I want that to hit home.
Yep.
Not asking for help or advice. This is a huge one, especially when we're struggling. Can't find my mute. Especially when we're struggling, we'll isolate. Stick our hand in the sand. Feel like we're the only ones going through these problems, and we're not. We're not the only ones going through these problems, or somebody's been through the problem before, or they're just getting ready to go into the problem. And so asking for help and advice is extremely important, especially when you're struggling. This is a pet peeve of mine at mentoring people is not listening to advice or implementing it. I don't know how many times I've given somebody advice. I've told them exactly what they need to do based on the fact that I've been there, done that. And they drag their feet and don't do it. And then months later, they finally implement it and they get the result they were supposed to get. Only they didn't get it as soon as they were supposed to get it. And so, you need to ask for help and then you need to implement the advice, and obviously if you got good advice, you need to implement the advice. Okay, real quick here. This is something just to really, really think about. How do we make money in this business? How do we make money in any business? As entrepreneurs, as leaders, how does our business make money? Our business makes money with our minds. We make money with our minds. I create stuff, that wasn't the word I was going to use, out of thin air. And I make it real and it becomes a thing. And and I make money with my mind. And I have to understand that, because if I allow my mind to go to a dark place, if I allow myself to burn out, if I allow myself to put myself in a position not to function, then I'm not going to be the most effective leader and businessman and operator that I could possibly be. And so just to kind of share, decision fatigue is a real thing. We got to put mechanisms in place to where we're not, this especially is a thing when you're like micromanaging your team and you're not allowing them to do things. We buy houses, renovate houses. I never even go to the houses. I don't know what colors are in the houses. I don't know what corner the house is on. I don't know what street it's on. And it gets done, right? I'm not making a decision on colors, on light fixtures, on tile. I'm not making any of those decisions. I tell my team, that I have until 10 a.m. before my decisions are done for the day. Because it's the thing, and I put mechanisms in place to kind of protect my mind, and I'll honestly say I'm decisioned out. Bring that to me tomorrow. Because I got to protect my mind. I got to protect what I do, because, I want to be able to be a visionary. I want to be able to look forward into what the opportunities are going to be. I want to be able to to drive and help and guide. And I can't do that if I allow my mind to just be beaten down constantly. Tim Ferriss, in his book, I think it's a 4 Hour Work Week, talks about the big domino. And he basically says, people want to meet with him and hang out with him. And he always tells them it's going to be super, super boring because, all he does is go to like a coffee shop or a Starbucks and just sit there and really kind of figure out what that big domino is going to be. It's going to push everything forward for him. He's not worried about the little pebbles and little scrimmages and little things in front of him. He's worried about the big domino that's going to change everything. And so I guess the point I want to make by saying this is give yourself permission to walk away. I think we have this disease as entrepreneurs to feel like we have to be busy, and busy equals success or equals results. And I did that forever. Like I would go to work when I had nothing to do, and I would find things to do to be busy because I felt like that's what I had to do. And I felt guilty because if I wasn't doing something, then I wasn't doing things right. And now it's like I will literally stop in the middle of the day and I'll go watch movies with my son, or I'll go watch, him and I binge watched Game of Thrones, and then we binge watched Vikings, and now Penguins, the show that we have been on. But I'll walk away. My other son, Silo, season 2's out. Like we binge watched season 1, now season 2's out. Like I just walk away and I literally will do things that allow me not to think, to give my brain a break. When I've hit a point where I feel like this, I've just I'm whatever it is I'm doing, I'm just spinning my wheels. And so give yourself permission to take a break. Give yourself permission to go sit at a coffee shop or a park and just think about your vision. Does my business align with my vision? Is it going the direction that I want it to go? What can I do to take it that direction? That kind of thing. I think it's huge.
I think, Don, we've talked about this before, but a lot of times people confuse activity with progress.
Right.
And they're not the same thing. Like we sometimes we can bite off on the lie that I've got to be at go, I've got to time block, I've got to get up 4 a.m. and go to the gym and do all the things, and no rest for the weary. That's exhausting. I don't know. I mean, I'm Tim Ferriss 4 Hour Work Week resonates a lot with me because you're creating a lot more margins, and it's less about the little dominoes, and it's like you said about the big domino that you can push over in your business. So don't confuse activity for progress. And again, a lot of people are miswired that way, and you've got to really unscramble that if you're really thinking that every single moment and every little detail and every little thing is so critical. You're going to burn out. I mean, I've seen it over and over again. So good stuff.
Yeah, it's a disease. It's definitely a disease. So that we feel like we have to be doing something. I think that comes from, I didn't come from money. A lot of us on here didn't come from money. And I think we feel that guilt when we're making money with our minds, and it's that easy to do it. And we don't have to work an 8-hour day. I've realized I make more money in the first 3 hours of the day than I do the rest of the time. So it's like, I'm going to go do something else.
Mm-hmm. Good.
Yeah. All right, that's what I got. So if there's any questions, comments, anything like that, I think we're pretty much right on time from where you wanted to be anyway. We got about 9 minutes.
I wanted to leave about 10 minutes for questions. So guys, Don, thanks so much. If you've got a question, I think there might be something in the chat. Great info. Yeah, Joshua, you're right. If you've got a question pertaining to Don's presentation, something again, Don's covered, go ahead and unmute yourself and you feel free to ask. And then we may be able to open it up to just questions in general. But anybody got any thoughts or any questions? Now's your chance. Go ahead, Ty, unmute yourself.
All right, here we go. I was trying to figure it out. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, shoot.
I guess my question would be pulling lists. If you could speak briefly on some do's and don'ts on pulling lists.
That's a broad question, so I'll do my best to give you what I can. I will say this: if you're just pulling lists from something like a ProfStream or a Batch or some of the other list pulling services, if you're going to List Source or something like that, a lot of people will pull lists multiple times in a year. Like, let's say I'm going to pull an equity list. My school of thought is that there's not enough change in the market, especially in something like Wichita, right, where a lot of you guys are at. There's not enough change in the market to warrant pulling the list, more than about once a year, twice a year, if you really want to stay on top of some things. I know PropStream's got a great feature where if new stuff that hits your list criteria comes in, then they'll actually notify you. They'll put it in a little spot for you in there. So, but a lot of people will want to pull an entire list like once a quarter, and I think you're throwing money away and stuff like that. The other thing that I will say is, when you're pulling lists, really think about what's going on in the seller's world. For instance, I lived in Wichita for about a year. I know that the snow goes sideways. It's crazy, and it gets icy, and there you have issues with hail. And so, 100% free and clear property. I always use this example. In California, in the Sunshine State, it's not even worth marketing to. I take it off. I do 30 to 99% equity on any list I pull. I just take 100% off, because the likelihood of the seller having enough of a problem with that property to sell to me is slim to none, and the squeeze isn't worth the juice. So, but in Wichita, where you have snow and ice and issues with rentals, I would hammer a high equity or 100% equity non-owner occupied properties from about December till about May, because you're going to have all kinds of issues going with that property, and the seller just being sick of having to deal with it. And so, taking that time to consider what's going on in the seller's world, and what could potentially affect whether or not a seller wants to sell, I think is huge when you're considering like we call the elder list, 65 years or older, 2,000 square feet or bigger, or 2-story, or throwing criteria in that, like what's going on in their world. They're empty nesters. They're one of the downsides. 65 years and 2-story, their knees are probably killing them. What's going on in the seller's world when you're trying to pull those lists? That's an important thing to think about.
Yeah, it's a good 30,000 foot view. Ty, there's a lot obviously can be said on that. Don could probably talk a week on that. So good stuff. Anybody else? Anything specifically that Don's addressed today? Any questions? Now's your chance, guys. We put these on, this is Don's time is valuable. I'd really encourage anybody that's got a question, that's been wanting to ask Don, go ahead and do it.
No question's a bad question, but maybe I'm just so good at explaining things.
That's what I always say. Get done, and it's like, man, that was nothing.
Right.
I mean, I got one more. I didn't want to be the only one asking though.
Dominate.
So what I'm struggling with right now, and it seems probably everybody at any time, is getting access to properties, not so much getting the deals, but just getting access to opportunities to even talk to people. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
I mean, you're talking lead flow, right? I mean,
lead flow. Yeah. And I started some direct mail, and with some of the criteria. Sorry, and I'll let you answer the question. But yeah, good solid ways to get leads coming in.
So let me interject one thing before you go, Don. Ty, I know your situation, and it's the momentum piece. Totally the momentum piece. You're just starting out. You got to give it some time. You got to get the momentum behind you. I can tell you, the first round of bandit signs I dropped out, man, I was like, this is exciting. The phone's going to ring off the hook. It was just momentum. I mean, that first call took a second call, and then more time, and the third, and then you start a CRM, and then you're doing follow up. It's a momentum piece. But Don, go ahead. I don't want to steal your thunder.
No, I 100% agree. But there's one more piece I'll add to that. One is, I'm going to agree with Jason on the mental piece. You send out a batch of direct mail, you start getting a few phone calls, but nothing really looks like it's going to convert right away. You send out your second batch, you get some more phone calls there, you continue your conversation with batch one. You send out your third batch, and then maybe batch one pops the deal, right? And that's something to consider. It's time and having conversations. The other thing I will say though is 2024. You think about it, Kamala Harris spent $1 billion on the race. Trump spent 400,000, and then there was other money. So there was probably somewhere close to $2 billion spent. And granted, there were some markets where more money was spent than others. That kind of stuff affects our results. As much as people, they don't stop and look at that. Like I said, what's going on in the world? I mean, people are getting, I remember sitting here and my father-in-law, they come over Sunday every once in a while. No, I'll make dinner, they'll have dinner, whatever. He was here for 45 minutes and got 3 texts from the Trump campaign in 45 minutes. You know, my wife's sitting there and she's getting multiple texts from the Kamala Harris campaign. Now, we're conservative. I'll just throw it out there. We're independents. We lean conservative. My wife is not on a Democrat list, but she is a college educated white woman. And so she's the demographic. They're pulling lists the same way we're pulling lists is the point I want to make. And they're hammering everybody. And so they're getting text messages and robocalls and direct mail pieces and TV commercials. That stuff affects our results. And so what I will say about it is the noise has settled. First, second week in December, I would really start to turn my marketing on for sure. If I were you, I'd be turning it on now, but at least the first, second week of December, I'd start to figure out, kind of dial in where I want to be. And I would go hard that last week of December into January, because January, I'm telling you, compared to this last year, is going to be on fire for most of us.